Game on! Game on! Johnny.
You're gonna need a big approach.
So serious.
Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 129 for August 9th, 2015, and I'm JD Duran.
And I'm fantastic.
Fantastic Brendan Cassidy. Yes.
I'm just fantastic.
Thanks for joining us this week, everybody. We do have, hopefully, a fantastic show. I'm sure it will be better than the movie Fantastic Four that we'll be talking about, but we'll get into that here in just a little bit. Before we do that, Brendan, how's your week, man?
You mean Fant-Four-Stick?
Yes.
There are a lot of. I think we're going to be throwing out a lot of different puns for what this movie should have been called, but we'll wait for the review for that. I think we're going to have some fun there. But otherwise, week's going pretty good. I'm in podcast mode right now. I'll tell you because I just got off of a stretch with the Lambcast where we did an entire retrospective on the Mission Impossible franchise.
Very fun,
which was a heck of a lot of fun. And when we got to Mission Impossible 3, as I expected, it was a very divisive conversation.
Yep.
But it was fun. I also won a game of Last Lamb Standing, so I was very, very proud of myself. So I'm in a good mood.
That game, so I'm glad that one of us is good at it.
I'll represent InSession Film for us all.
Nice.
How about you, man?
My week was very good, obviously, as we alluded to on our extra film, and sorry I got it out a day late, but that's because I had a fun birthday trip. Where my wife and my dog and we went to this cabin about an hour from here, and in eastern Kentucky, where all the stereotypes of Kentucky live, they're true, and they're in the eastern part of the state. But the eastern part of the state is also very gorgeous. It's very, very beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were staying at the Daniel Boone National Forest. It was really great. But what I didn't expect was our cabin, the one that we booked, was so it was so awful. All the furniture, especially outside, was nasty and gross. The grill was unusable. And they labeled this a pet-friendly cabin, but the stairs that goes from the downstairs to upstairs is one of those twisty staircases, and it's very steep. So dogs that are, I would say, mid to large size dogs, which my dog is, he's about 70 pounds.
Sure.
He can't get down those stairs. He could barely get up. And the first night that we were there, I tried to get in front of him before he went downstairs because I knew it was really steep and he'd struggle. But he went before I could do it, and he just slid all the way down. I'm very surprised he didn't hurt himself. I thought he was going to break his neck or something, but thankfully, that didn't happen. So on top of that, it was just one thing after another. And then it was really funny to me that before we checked out, they wanted us to essentially do their laundry. We had to make sure that the bed was made. We had to make sure all the towels were in the washing machine and being washed. And we had to do all the dishes that we use and all this sort of stuff. And then they had the audacity to leave an envelope there that said, "Hey, can you please leave us any housekeeping tips?" What housekeeping are you doing? I'm having to do your damn job for you.
Did you even know you had to do all that crap before booking this place?
I didn't, but maybe Brandy did. I have no idea. It was just absurd to me.
Yeah, because that's something that they should put on the flyer.
Yeah, and of course it looks a lot different than the way they portray it on the website. Thankfully, we weren't at the cabin enough for it to really matter. The trip overall was awesome. We went on a lot of hiking, and it was just a blast, but the cabin was just the worst.
Oh man, is it terribly ironic that you mentioned getting our extra film out a little bit later, but we ironically reviewed talked about Vacation, and I'm here now thinking of that sequence in the original Vacation where they rent out those terrible cabin tents. That's all I'm thinking about with your story right now, which is very coincidental.
It was very ironic. I was hating on that movie, and then that happens to me. I guess that's just karma. I guess, but
for seeing that movie.
So anyway, on that note, let's bring on this week's awesome guests, as in two of them, because we have Paul and Brian from the Blokebusters Podcast are back once again. Thanks, fellas, for joining us.
You're welcome, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for being back. Hopefully this journey is more fun than the last time you guys were here, although based off of what you guys were saying us before we started recording about Fantastic Four, maybe you didn't like the movie as much, but hopefully we'll have fun talking about it anyway.
It's the other side of that coin. It's always more fun to talk about the bad ones than the good ones.
Very much so.
Yes.
True story.
Yeah, let's certainly hope so, because as we have alluded to, we are going to be talking about, of course, the new Fantastic Four movie, and going off of that, we are going to be talking about our top 3 superpowers used in film, which should be an intriguing conversation. And for our discussion segment, as I'm sure we'll be doing a little bit of this in our Fantastic Four review, but we're going to be doing another segment of rants and raves, which I have something I'm pretty excited to rave about. I'm going to do a lot of ranting in the first segment, but in that last segment, I'll be doing a lot more raving. But we'll get more into that here in a little bit. Last thing I want to plug, as Brendan just mentioned, our latest extra film is out. A day late, but it's out. We do talk about paper towns and vacations, so definitely go and check it out. It was a really, really fun show with Mr. Brent Allen. So on that note, a lot to talk about, guys. Let's get into it.
And here we go.
You're listening to the InSession Film Podcast. This is episode 129. Brendan, I just want to fix this film.
You can't fix this. No one can.
This is Ben.
What's up? You his lucky charm?
You guys sure you're in the best shape to be doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're good.
So, I guess I should come up with something better than one small step for man.
Strap in and get comfy, kids. We're about to make history.
Yeah, or die. Either or. All right, gentlemen. Hands and feet must remain inside the ride at all times. Don't blow up. Don't blow up.
Oh yeah, that's what I want to hear before going into another dimension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, Fantastic Four is directed by Fox Studios. I mean Josh Trank.
You mean Josh Tank?
Yeah. It stars Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Kate Mara, Jamie Bell, Toby Kebbell, and a few others that we'll get into. Let's start off with Paul and Brian. What did you guys think about the new Fantastic Four?
Brian, do you want to start?
Yes. Shocker here. Well, I managed to stay awake. That's the highest compliment I can give it.
That's good.
I don't know. Briefly, that's my feelings, Paul.
After watching this film and thinking about it in the car ride home, the one from, 10 years ago was much better than this one.
And I never thought I would say that.
I know.
But I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it... I don't know what was worse, the pacing of it, or just the fact that it just didn't seem to find its feet.
No. The whole movie was a first act, it felt like to me. It's just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that they are clearly trying to set up, now that they're set up as a team, let's do another film. It's like, you can't have an entire first film just to set up a second film. You need to have something.
Yeah, this whole film felt like the first 40 minutes of Avengers.
Yeah.
That's how it felt to me.
What about you, Brendan?
Except not fun. Sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely a dark film. I think you guys hit the nail on the head because basically what you guys just said is that, and this is what this movie is. This movie is set up an exposition for a movie that never happens. That's what this movie is. It's not even a movie. It's all a first act, like you said. I'm going to come right off the bat and say, this is not a good film. I'm not recommending this film, but I do not think it's as bad as people are saying. I don't think it's 10% Rotten Tomatoes bad.
That is low, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just based on, expectations and perceptions, because everyone heard about all these problems that this film was having on set, and I'm not sure how much of it is true, whether like Josh Trank showing up being irresponsible and drunk on set. I don't know how true that is or not. I don't really care. But I feel like people take this so much to heart that they go into the movie expecting it to be bad and wanting it to be bad for those reasons. And I'm not saying that the criticisms for this movie aren't warranted, because they are. I do think the first half of this film is pretty good. I think up until they get to the point where they travel to this other dimension, I think the pacing is overall pretty good. I thought the chemistry between these leads was, I thought it was believable in the sense that I could accept it. But then we get to a point where the time jumps to 1 year later, and at that point it felt like 10 different filmmakers got on board. In fact, I'm willing to predict that Josh Trank left production at that 1 year later mark, and then the studio had to finish it then, because nothing happens in this movie then. And I got really, really bored. The writing even changed. The direction changed. It got so stiff. Everything got so wooden. They waste the villain here. I mean, this is not Dr. Doom. In fact, if you want to judge this film just as an adaptation of this comic, it's god awful. This is not the Fantastic Four. As a movie, there are moments that I didn't hate it, but no, it's not a good movie. And even as an adaptation, the 2005 and 2007 films are technically better adaptations, which is astounding to say. But I don't think it's as bad as people are saying, but it's still not good.
Yeah, I'm actually in your camp in a lot of ways, Brendan, but I want to say up front, I agree with you, Paul and Brian and Brendan as well, that this is not a great movie by any means. The best way that I can describe it is it's like eating a saltless cracker. It is so bland and unappetizing.
Yeah.
And I will say, though, that I think there are seeds of a good idea here, and we see the tips of those ideas. That's pretty much all it ever is. It just becomes so mundane, especially in the second half, and it fizzles out very quickly. I will say, I think my favorite scene in the entire film is when they do this test run and they send these chimps back to this other dimension, and as soon as the chimp comes back, there's a really great shot where it gets a little bit of a close-up on Toby Kebbell's character, and he asks the question, is the chimp okay? Which I thought was so great.
From Koba himself.
Yeah, from Koba himself. Oh, that's all I could picture. Easily the best moment of the movie. Now, of course, this movie is bad. We can talk about how bad it is all day long. And in the opening segment, I said that I was going to rant about this a little bit, and I am. But maybe for not the reasons that a lot of people were expecting. Because what I want to rant about, Brendan, and this is obviously a lot more fascinating and entertaining than the actual movie itself, but is Josh Trank himself in this whole situation. I want to talk about this for a little bit because as you were talking about, Brendan, of course, this was a property that had lots of production issues, and a lot of rumors started circulating. Fans of the property, I think, hated and reviled this even before the movie came out. I'm not a huge fan of the property itself, so the changes they made didn't necessarily bother me. In fact, in the first half of the film, I like Trank's vision and what he was doing with it at the very beginning.
It was at least consistent, and that's all I cared about.
Yeah. Now, I was listening to the War Machine versus Warhorse podcast before we came on, and Michael Denniston said something that I thought was really interesting, and you kind of touched on this already, Brennan, is he was saying, he used the word cowards and bloggers. Those are his words. But a lot of people that wanted to hate this property are going to have a lot of fun with this, and I could understand why. It is a bad movie, but this whole mob mentality about this is a bit absurd to me. I feel like a lot of people wanted to hate this going into it, and so when they see some bad stuff on screen, they just go crazy with it, because I don't think it's 10% in Rotten Tomatoes bad either. I don't even think it's close. Is it a bad movie? Absolutely, it's a bad movie, but I feel like it's gone a little bit overboard. And this is where I kind of want to take the conversation for a little bit, because Josh Trank seems like the kind of guy, based off of what I know about him, that needs to have control. And when Fox took that control away from him, he pretty much emotionally unraveled. But what I like about it is that he kind of called out Fox on that. He's like, this is not my movie. And this is kind of like a something that directors don't do, even though it happens all the time. This stuff happens all the time, but I love that Trank went out publicly and said, hey, this isn't my film. Fox took it away from me. And I liked that. And maybe he could have acted with a little bit more maturity, and he could have, responded a little bit different. But, according to a lot of reports, Fox didn't respond well either. And they essentially stripped him of what he was wanting to do with this. And you can tell, as you said, Brendan, once he got to that point, it's a completely different movie in the second half.
Yeah.
And that to me is really fascinating. I'm kind of on his train, if you will.
Yeah, and I wasn't, at least, normally when I see a director do something like that, I usually kind of see the director as being, maybe not cowardly is the right word, but I usually can't side with them because they're kind of being, they're trying to defend themselves more than the product themselves, and they're trying to find an easy way out. But having seen this film, I'm kind of veering more towards his camp, that I think the culprit here was Fox Studios, and some of the some of the stuff that they've been involved in the past with other films. I can't think of any examples offhand, but I know it's happened before, especially with Fox. I think I can believe it, and it's also ironic that the cast themselves hadn't even seen the movie, even like when it came out. They hadn't even seen the final product, which I think is incredibly interesting. Yeah, but I think
Lucky
it's a
bastards.
fascinating point. I think they may have a good point, but I do see your point, JD, and I'm kind of in agreement with it, to be honest.
Well, I think for one, when you see the movie, I mean, the first half is the more fascinating part of it, and I take Trank at his word that was the vision that he wanted to go with. And I think Fox set him up to fail. And I think that's the thing that's the most disappointing to me, is because I can see the seeds that he planted, but then you can tell where Fox really took over. I mean, it's on record that there were script rewrites and production changes right before production started.
Yeah, right, even during filming, I think, too.
Even during filming. And they fought Trank on casting choices that he wanted. And according to this Entertainment Weekly article I was reading, basically sources close to the film were saying that Fox stripped him pretty much early on. So a lot of this final product isn't even Trank, even though his name is attached to it. Wow. And then, of course, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into that. And I think, for me, that's why I'm kind of in Trank's camp here a little bit, because the seeds that I saw I liked, because it's in the beginning it's kind of more of like this sci-fi horror element. It's kind of like Alien meets Chronicle a little bit, and so I liked that direction. And then it takes a way incredibly awful different turn in the third act of this movie.
Yeah, basically becomes a comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see where the studio was stepping on his toes a lot. And it's like, if you're going to hire a guy to do the job, and obviously they hired him for a reason, right? Let him do the job. You hired him for his vision. You already approved the budget. You approved the scripts. You approved the actors. And then you change all of that right before production. And you may have your reasons, and it's your money, but you set up the guy to fail from the beginning. And again, like I said, Trank could have responded a little bit differently in some situations. It's not all Fox's fault, but still, like when I see it based off of the evidence that's right in front of me, it's like I agree with you, Brendan. I see Fox more as the culprit here than Trank. But Paul and Brian, anything to add to that?
I'm not as willing to give Trank a pass on this. I do think it's more Fox. I will agree with that. But from what I understood, he was just a complete mess to work with. But, you get both sides firing shots of who's telling the truth.
Right.
But, yeah, it just sounded like he was, I don't know, just a pain, to put it lightly, to deal with.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be fair to say that when Fox strips you of your budget and your script and even actors right before production gets going, wouldn't that make you a little upset? Like, I understand
fair,
that.
Yes.
I understand he could have reacted a little bit differently, but I can sympathize with him getting pissed off.
Yes, and I would love to see this movie that in 2014 that his cut. I would love to see.
Sure.
I would love to see a documentary I'd love to see a
Yeah.
documentary of the making of this film.
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened behind scenes?
That would be fantastic.
It sounds
Yeah.
to me like they should have brought back the Alan Smithy moniker for this one, given that apparently nobody really directed this then.
Yes, it was directionless. To say,
absolutely.
the least. But
And just real fast to your point, though, Brian, is that, and this is, I feel like where Josh Trank failed the most, is that he should have been a little bit more calm in his response because, like I was saying earlier, this stuff happens all the time. But even earlier this year, Colin Trevorrow went from a small indie sci-fi to a big budget movie. And I'm sure that there was some studio interference there too, but you didn't hear any of this. Like, he was calm in his reaction, and that movie went off without a hitch, right? Obviously broke all kinds of records. So it's been done before. That, I feel like, is where Trank really, I think, hurt himself the most, is he should have responded a lot differently than what he did, but I can sympathize with why he was upset.
yeah, and for me, the number one thing that I felt this was doomed from the beginning was that the reason this got made was Fox was going to lose their rights.
Yeah, sure.
So anytime that's your motivating factor, I think that's setting things up slightly for failure.
That's a really good point, yes.
Basically the same reason Terminator Genesis exists.
Yes, so they could keep the rights on the property. Yeah, good.
Well, it's ironic because that's the same reason why the Fantastic Four film from the early 90s exists, because it was never meant to see the light of day, and they just released it direct to video, I heard, because they just needed the rights retained. But that's the only reason why that film ever came out. So it's ironic that that's essentially the same scenario here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe we'll finally see another group of superheroes joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, because I even heard rumors that Fox is thinking about pulling this film from theaters of how bad the response is and how much of a flop it's being.
I would like to point out that despite what it says at the front of the film, this is not a Marvel film. This is Marvel
This is
only
not.
because they technically created the characters, and that's it. Like, there's not even any Stan Lee in this film.
No.
So he didn't want anything to do with it.
I want to do as much as I can to make sure people know that this has nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Marvel's real tiny in the corner on the posters. It's not big. That's how you know. They're like, do we have to put our name on the poster?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they won't even let Fox sell their toys, and they stopped the comic run of it too. Like,
well, just if this is any indication, it wasn't even good enough for 3D. Which, if that's, they'll put anything in 3D. And I mean, I should say a wide release 3D.
It's now to the point that anytime you see that icon saying "see it in large format," that logo there, every time I see that now, I'm gonna automatically assume, well, the movie's not that good.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I guess we can kind of get back to the movie itself, even though that conversation I feel like is a lot more interesting. But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I guess my biggest frustration, I think, can be summed up in one scene. And that is when they get captured after this event happens, and the Reed character is trying to get to Ben, and he can hear Ben kind of screaming out for him, which I thought was kind of a visceral scene. I think that was the heart of what Trank was trying to get at. And I think on paper, you can just kind of sympathize with that idea anyway, and someone struggling with those kinds of changes that just happened to him. But right after that, the film pretty much abandons all of that, and that's when we pretty much get to that 1 year later moment that you were talking about, Brendan. And that to me is my biggest frustration, because I like that scene on its own. You strip everything away. I feel like that scene had the heart of what I feel like Trank was trying to do, and then the rest of the film wasn't able to keep up, and it just becomes a gigantic mess after that.
Yeah, and that's my biggest frustration with this film as well, JD. I think you hit the nail on the head, because one of the things I did like about this film, especially in the first half, is something I didn't quite get from the 2005 and 2007 films, you know, with Chris Evans and Jessica Alba and all of them, is that the essence of the Fantastic Four is that this is like the first superhero family in many ways. And I could see what Josh Trank, I guess, wanted to do here was make it feel kind of familial, but but kind of driven by friendship more than anything else. And I kind of felt that sense of camaraderie with them, and I thought their chemistry wasn't that bad in the first half. But you're right. At that 1 year later mark, all that development and all that heart there was completely thrown out the window for essentially nothing to happen. And that's really my biggest frustration here. And like, there's really no conflict. There's really hardly anything at stake. I mean, Earth, I guess, is sort of in peril, but not.
But that
really.
is so contrived. It's so
contrived. It's so unearned.
Slightly in peril, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And it's a complete waste of who is arguably one of the greatest villains in the entire Marvel universe, at least in the comic book world. I don't mind that they want to do something a little bit different here, but the villain, even just represented as its own here, he's nonsense. And I like Toby Kebbell. I thought he was actually, as the character of Victor in the first half, I actually thought his character was kind of interesting. I thought he had some pretty interesting one-liners. He was actually kind of funny at times. But as a villain, his motivation makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't get behind it.
And he's also only on screen for about 20 minutes as the villain.
Yes.
Maybe less than that.
That might even be
Probably
generous.
less than that, yeah.
This film is possibly the shortest superhero film I've ever seen, and it felt like the longest.
I was going to make that same point at some time, yes.
I
never
agree with that.
Felt 100 minutes last so long.
Maybe it's because of the different shifts in tone. I mean, the opening 10-15 minute with Homer Simpson felt like Stand By Me, and then it jumped into this kid geniuses thing, which it's one thing I didn't like about their take on it, is that the Fantastic Four are older people that have been working in the scientific community for a while, and then they get the powers. And these guys are like, well, they've just got out of school, and now they had to work as a team. That didn't work for me. I don't know why.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Four themselves and how you guys kind of felt as an ensemble. I thought, even the Four beyond that, I would say the five, Kate Mara, Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Bell, and Toby Kebbell, all wonderfully talented people, I would say.
Yeah.
And completely wasted in this film.
I'd say,
I didn't even feel chemistry with them in the first half. There was no, because this should be a family. They should be bonded, and there was none of that for me.
No, like I said earlier, the Fantastic Four with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, they felt much more like a family and a team to me than these guys ever did.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually glad that you guys brought that up, because that was a question I was going to raise to you guys after Brendan brought it up earlier. And I'm actually more in your guys' camp, although I love them all as actors. And that was my biggest hope coming into this is, I like Josh Trank. At least I loved Chronicle a lot. So, and from what I buy into anyway is his vision for this, I'll be in his camp to see more of his films later. But I really like the cast there. I think the cast is awesome, but I agree they're absolutely wasted. And I didn't really feel their chemistry at all. I felt like all the relationships were really bland. And really, I think the fault with the cast really isn't so much the performances, as you guys were saying. They have nothing to work with. And the pacing is all over the place. The story is just a giant mess. And we never really get a chance to see them bond with one another. I mean, there are a few scenes where we see it here and there, but especially the brother-sister relationship, I didn't feel that at all.
Exactly.
I felt it a little bit with the Reed Richards and the Ben story a little bit, but again, that is fleshed out so superficially, and the only reason that scene really worked for me earlier, I feel like, is on paper, I sympathize with the idea of what these characters were going through. And I feel like it's viscerally well executed, but it's not as earned as it could have been. And that, to me, is also a big disappointment with this movie. There was no team chemistry at all.
Yeah, let me jump in a bit to kind of defend myself as to why I said that I felt like that there was a sense of camaraderie there. I guess it's because in that first half, I did feel like it was going to be building up to where the chemistry was fully fleshed out. And we would have gotten, like you're talking about that one scene, JD, where you've got Reed Richards trying to rescue Ben. It leads to kind of almost a minorly cathartic moment that you thought that you wanted to see more explored, but they kind of abandoned that notion.
Sure.
And I think the reason why the chemistry, at least for most people, and I could see why it's not there for most people, I think the reason why it's just not there is because they totally abandon everything when it gets to that whole 1 year later mark.
Yeah,
the entire second half of the film, it completely abandons
Yeah.
it. But the reason why I think I still like the first half, because I felt like it was building to that. to at least kind of culminate in a way where you did feel like these guys are a family. I think it was on pace to do that, and I could see where those seeds were being planted, at least from Josh Trank's, probably his original vision. It just was abandoned, which makes the chemistry not there because it was never, it never came to its turning point. It never came to its conclusion. But I thought the seeds were there. I did think the seeds were there.
And I would agree with that. And I would buy into those seeds. I just don't think that they grow to anything significant.
It absolutely doesn't.
Absolutely.
But that's why I still say, since I could still recognize those seeds, I will give some credit to it in the first half.
And that's fair. Absolutely. Another thing, too, about this, and I'll be curious to hear you guys' thoughts, is, I'm pretty tired of the whole military trying to manipulate trope. Now, if it's well executed, I'm perfectly okay with that. Brendan, we talk about that we talked about that with Southpaw and a lot of other movies earlier this year. If you give me the same tropes over and over, at least do something good with it. That's a trope that is pretty tiresome, and here it fails as miserably as anything else can. And we already talked about the stakes at the end are absolutely ridiculous. And how about the ending of this movie is eye-rollingly bad and is ripped straight from the Avengers. It's ripped straight from the Avengers. It's so bad.
God, no words. Words.
Yes, exactly.
You hit the nail on the head.
You know what? I was excited, though. I was excited when I felt that finale, not for the finale, but because I knew
it's
the movie
done.
would be
Yes, thank God it's over.
That was the only reason I was excited for that.
And then
finale.
it leads to this, they act like you could tell the Fox Studios themselves were trying to culminate this film with that sense of camaraderie that we knew was missing. And I think they knew it was too, because they have this this dialogue and this conversation that's happened between the four of them at the very, very end about how they want to name themselves. It's like, it is so god awful.
It's so bad.
Oh my God! They at least had the sense not to say the line. I will give them that, because I would have stood up and given the bird to the screen and probably punched the.
Instead, the title of the movie appears and does it for you.
Yes.
Yeah, they really may as well have that.
They might as well. Yeah, if you're going to go that route.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Say that again. No.
Yeah.
Please.
And I don't even buy the character of Ben Grimm saying the word fantastic. I don't.
Yeah, he's never said
think
it.
That's in his lexicon.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is pretty bad. Let's get to final thoughts and grades, though. I think we've talked about this enough. Any other final thoughts, and what grades would you guys give Fantastic for?
Well, I mean, the problem when it comes to grading this film is, as we said, there's so many bad parts to the film, but I can't necessarily fault the acting, because I'm sure they were doing the best with what they had.
Yes.
But everything else, some of the graphics weren't even that great half the time. So it seemed like this film was just very rushed from the start. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna be generous and give it a 4 out of 10. I think, because it's not the worst film I've ever seen. It was just so boring.
It was completely uninteresting. Yes. I'm right there along with you, Paul. I just felt completely over the film 10 minutes into it, and stuck with it, but it just led to nowhere. So long getting into the action, and I use action with heavy quotations.
Yeah, action of a sort.
Yes.
Action meaning something other than just dialogue.
Hardly anything worked for me. Like you said, a few seeds of some interesting ideas, but never explored. For me, the perfect moment for me in the film that kind of goes with my thinking is when Reed and Sue are talking and kind of getting to know each other, and a slight bit of flirtation is happening, and Victor interrupts it. And in so doing, interrupts any potential chemistry that the rest of the film had. It's kind of what it felt like for me. And after that, I thought I was done. So you guys use the letter grades, correct? I'll go along with the letter grade for you and give it a I was going to say D-, but a very, very light D.
Okay, fair enough. What about you, Brendan?
I'll talk about other few good things. I like the score here. Marco Beltrami, is that his name? Yeah. I thought the music was fine. The music at least felt like that they were trying to do something good here, unlike what Fox Studios gave us. And something you guys were talking about was the special effects here. I mean, there's a scene where Reed Richards kind of morphs his face to disguise himself as someone else. And I watched that and thought, how the hell was that digital piece of approved for a final film? I mean,
they did it better in Fury 7.
Yeah, it looked like something from 1993. It was terrible. But I felt like that a lot with the special effects in the final act of this film too. It was oh god, it wasn't polished. It felt like they didn't care, but
they didn't.
I was going to say earlier as well that the monkey looked worse than the monkeys from the Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. I thought those apes looked great.
And it was only on screen for what, 30 seconds in total.
Yeah.
Some of the best acting in it.
Yeah. By a digital freaking monkey.
Yes.
But I'm having a hard time wanting to grade this film because judging this as a representation of the Fantastic Four comics, if you want to look at it as an adaptation, it's a flat out fail. This is not the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
As a movie itself, it's still pretty terrible. It's like a deranged film. I completely agree with you guys. The reason why I'm a bit more I feel like I'm giving it some more credit than it probably deserves is because within the first half, I could see those seeds that Josh Trank was planting where a good idea was, and I could see where a good film was. And like I said, I thought the first half had enough good things going for it that I potentially saw where it could go, and I was looking forward to it. It's just, of course, once 1 year later comes onto the screen, it's a complete atrocity of a film then. But those good ideas that I recognize, I'm maybe giving a bit too much credit to, but I still am. So I'll give it a C-. I will give it mostly because where those good ideas were, I was happy with. But that's the best I can say about it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about how this film has a lot of flaws, and it certainly does, but I didn't really completely hate this movie. I liked the original vision and the tone and style of the first half. For me, like I was saying, it kind of felt like this sci-fi horror adventure film at the beginning of it, and I feel like that camaraderie that we were talking about that wasn't earned could have been felt if it just stuck to those guns.
It was paced. It was on its way to get there, but it didn't.
Absolutely. But then they switch it completely, which is so ironic that Fox wanted to change that to get what they wanted, and yet they failed miserably at it. But the Fantastic Four, there's these really interesting notions, I think, of a family and abandonment and struggling with this new identity that you had happened to you, whether you liked it or not. I think that is an interesting idea, especially within the tone of style that I think Trank was really going for. But ultimately, none of those ideas are fleshed out, and this becomes a giant mess. But I think that's why going forward, whether it's in Fox's hands or maybe it gets over to Disney and Marvel, I don't know, I would like to see this property done right, because I feel like those ideas are interesting, and I think within these characters you can make something great out of it. But it's felt like Fox just hasn't really given a shit about this property. We've seen that 3 times now, and 3 times it has failed miserably. So if Fox isn't going to care about it, give it to someone that does, because I do like on paper everything that this franchise could be.
I agree.
All that being said, as far as other final thoughts, Brendan, you brought up Doom's motives in the third act, which are egregiously bad. You know what would have been really funny, though, and what really could have just solved this problem? This is a character that just wanted to be alone. Just let him be alone on his planet, and everything would have been fine. Problem solved.
Yeah.
That's all that
it's incredibly ironic.
Yeah. Unbelievable. But what are you going to do? I will say I did like the Dr. Franklin Storm character. I think he grounds the film in a lot of ways and gives it some authentic heart. I like that they are self-aware in his speeches, and his dialogue I thought was really good. And it worked for that character, where they tried to do the same thing with the Reed Richards character. It was cheesy and it was corny, and it didn't work near the end. But with that character, it worked great. He was about the only, I think, really well fleshed out character in the movie, and I did like that about the film. One other thing that I'll say, and then I'll give my grade, is, and I think this is important to note in terms of comparing this movie to other films, and I was listening to the True Bromance Film Podcast, and I feel like I can bring this up because Hyro can take it, and he knows that I love him. But on their show, he was saying that this is just nothing more than a carbon copy of Avengers and other Marvel films, and I just can't agree with that at all. I think on the surface, yes, this film follows the same formula, but with Fantastic Four, this is all over the place. Marvel, to me, I think is pretty good at making sense of that formula that they have, and they make it fun. This movie is not very fun, and it doesn't have any humor in it. It's just boring all the way throughout. It's just really mundane, where Marvel films, even when they don't hit all the right notes, I still have a lot of fun with those movies. So that, to me, I think is the big difference and why I can't agree with something like that. So in comparison, this movie, while I don't hate it, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as its Rotten Tomato score, but Marvel's bad movies, I still think are miles above what this one is.
Sure, yeah.
And all that being said, I wouldn't recommend this. I would probably give it a C- as well. And the Marco Beltrami score, I would also agree, Brendan, is really, really good. I like that one as well. So anyway, on that note, if you want to read more of my thoughts, I will have some stuff on this on our Letterboxd page at letterboxd.com/InSessionFilm.
And if you agree or disagree with our takes on Fant Four Stick or Fantastic Boar or Fantastic Chore or I just had to throw them out there, let us know by leaving a comment on our Facebook page at facebook.com/InSessionFilm. Tweet us at InSessionFilm, and you can also leave us a comment on Google Plus or email us at InSessionFilm@gmail.com.
All right, the InSession Film Top 3 is next, and we'll be discussing our top 3 superpowers in film.
With great power comes great responsibility. You hear that, Fox?
Yes, it's your fault, Fox. Damn it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. The InSession Film Top 3 is brought to you by the First Time Watchers Podcast. And Brendan, of course, we just got done talking about the new Fantastic Four movie. And I gotta say, just like that film, the First Time Watchers Podcast, it's not as bad as everyone says it is.
Oh, that's hard.
Just kidding. They're awesome. They're awesome.
I think the better way to say is, unlike that movie, these guys are fantastic. That's cuter, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
but no, regardless, though, the point we're making is that they're a great show.
They are.
Great support
They're
of our
awesome.
show as well, and definitely a podcast. You guys out there, you definitely got to check them out. Hosted by Tim, Walter, and Hermano, and as far as what's fantastic is their knowledge of movies. That's a given fact.
Absolutely. I was just kidding, Tim and Hermano and Walter. You guys know I love you. Their banter is amazing, and it's very, very entertaining, unlike not Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Thank you, Fox.
Yes.
But what's unique about their show is that every week they'll pick out a movie that they've never seen before and discuss it on their show to give it such a fresh perspective, which is very interesting. They'll also discuss other movies and trailers that they've seen recently, so it's very movie news heavy as well, which is very interesting.
Yes, and they also give out some great movie recommendations at the end of the show that I would also pay attention to. And overall, the show is just very smart. It's fluid. It's so easy to listen to, and you can just tell they have a lot of fun on their show, and that's the best part about it. I mean, it's awesome and very entertaining. So that being said, Brendan, where can you find these guys on the internet?
You can check them out at firsttimewatchers.blogspot.com or hit them up on Twitter at firsttimewatchers, or just search on Facebook for First Time Watchers. We promise you, they have not been tampered by Fox.
Yes, absolutely. Go subscribe to them on iTunes, and while you're there, please leave them a review and let them know that we sent you to them. I promise it's absolutely worth your time. Again, that's First Time Watchers.
Why haven't you seen To Kill a Mockingbird?
I was too busy rewatching the Marvel Cinematic Universe films again.
Why haven't you seen Mad Max?
Do you know how hard it is to track down a copy of The Return of Captain Invincible?
Why haven't you seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Did you know that Road to Perdition was originally a comic book?
This
is Bubba Wheat from Flights, Tights, and Movie Nights, and on each episode of Filmwise, my guest introduces me to a film that they're passionate about and I've never seen before, and in return I introduce them to a comic book or superhero film that they're curious about. Find it every other week at filmwise.com, iTunes, or Stitcher.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
You're listening to the InSession Film Podcast. This is episode 129, and now we're going to be going over our top 3 for this week. And on the subject of Fant 4 Stick that we just reviewed, we're going to be talking about our top 3 superpowers, either represented in film or just in general, whatever you guys have. But before we get going, did you guys have any criteria that you had that you used to pick your list specifically? We'll toss to Brian and Paul, you guys first.
Well, I just kind of thought what would be the coolest to have or most amusing. It's kind of a mix. Just, it was just kind of whatever popped into my head. Like, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, so, I kind of thought what would be the most useful. Like, not even because obviously
pragmatic.
That's saying that there's really cool powers to have, and then there's powers that you would just kill to have. Like, that's
right.
Sure.
What I went with.
Yeah, and I hear you on that. And how about you, JD?
Well, great minds think alike, because my criteria is pretty much the same as Paul and Brian. I just wanted 3 powers that I either found useful or that I thought would kind of be badass to have, but I did try to incorporate a lot of practical use into my top 3.
Then our criteria is very boring and repetitive because I'm in the exact same boat as you
guys. Wait, are we back talking about Fantastic Four, boring and repetitive?
No, unfortunately, I think. Yeah, let's just review that movie. No, I want to get away from that. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you guys, and it's really more based on what powers I would like to have that I think I can find some personal use for, as you guys are just talking about. Not just, like for example, Superman has heat vision. I mean, as cool as that is, I don't think I need that. but
you could make an argument for it.
You can make an argument, but me personally, I think I can find some. I could use it to cook food, but that's about it. But,
I mean, cup of noodles, you're talking like 2 seconds for a cup of noodles. Like,
that's how you boil the water so quickly.
Yeah, that is useful. I don't got a minute to just sit around and wait.
Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, I wanted to focus on that. And one thing I do want to say is that one of my quote unquote superpowers isn't really a superpower. And I wanted to exclude anything that was, I wanted to exclude something that was I wanted to include things that are a bit more on the super aspect of superpowers, I guess more in the supernatural. But I decided to get rid of that criteria because there's one power I have on my top 3 that I think is something I would like to have, so I decided to include that. But we'll get to that point later.
I have one very similar, so yeah.
Yep. On that note, Brian, we'll toss it to you first. What is your number 3?
Okay. My number 3, it's very simple. I would just like Professor Xavier's ability to read minds. That would be fantastically useful in my day-to-day, I think.
Now, I do one clarification. Do you just want his ability to read minds, or do you want his ability to control as well?
Just to read. No. I just want to, take temperatures of everybody. Like, Sure. Turn it on and off, not have it always flooding in.
You would go insane.
And I would also like to not be in a wheelchair. But
you want to be able to walk
without that. Yeah.
I don't want the whole package. Yeah, I just want the mind reading.
Okay, fair enough.
How about you, Paul?
All right. Well, after thinking long and hard, I decided to go with telekinesis. Just because...
Okay.
You could win a lot of bar bets. And
well, the number one reason to have superpowers is bar bets. Come on.
And then also just the number of times that you need to move something. It's like I've now got to call someone to come round and help me.
So laziness is your
you've met me, right? I'm lazy. Yes, it's like, well, if I can just move that over there.
So any certain superhero that has telekinetic powers that you're basing that off of, just general telekinesis?
No, I mean, if you're going to go with thinking about that, then probably Jean Grey would pop straight into my head, because before she goes off the deep end is Dark Phoenix.
Goes all Phoenixified,
Yeah, but
as so well represented in X-Men 3.
Yes.
Written by, did you know this? Simon Kinberg.
Was it really?
Yes.
I'm not sure if I knew
who,
that.
wrote a little
Yeah, I
film called
forgot too.
Fantastic Four.
Shows how much I forget that movie exists.
Yeah. No,
Well,
you're right. to
Marvel
forget.
has made it so it now doesn't exist. Well, sorry, Fox. But whatever. I don't care at this point.
Yeah, how about you guys? Number 3.
How about you, JD? You'll go first.
Well, I'll go through mine quickly because I have 2 at my number 3 slot.
God.
Because
Cheater.
hey, it's my
Cheater.
show. I can do what I want.
Hey, touche.
Yeah, but I'm leading the segment. I say, no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So I have 2, and one of them, I guess, is because it's more of a thing that I want, but I think it's cool, and it's not necessarily what you would think of as typical superhero. But the first one I want to talk about is while, just a few moments ago, we were talking about telepathy, which would be cool, but as you were saying, Paul, it has this potential to be a little bit overwhelming, as we saw in Days of Future Past. So what I wanted to do is do something kind of the same. It would take a little bit more of a physical nature to it, but I would like to be Ant-Man, or like have the shrinking power of Ant-Man, because in the same vein, I could essentially be a fly on a wall, but with superhuman strength. So if I wanted to listen to somebody and get their thoughts, I could essentially be in the same room with them without them ever knowing about it. And now I have the information on them if I ever need it. So I think...
And if they talk on you, you get to beat them up.
Exactly. So I like that. I like with the shrinking power, you can essentially just be unknown, but still get the information you want. So that's kind of where I was going with that. And then my other one real fast is I would like to be or have the powers of the Avatar in the world of The Last Airbender, because I love that world, and the idea of throwing rocks around and creating fire and manipulating water and wind is just interesting to me. And why I hate that goddamn movie so much is because I love the world, and M. Night completely it over for me. So, but
for the record, let's just say that you're using it from the TV show instead, because that's where the good
sure, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I was using it from the TV show, but I'd love to be able to do that. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I like that pick, actually. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, how it's represented in that show, or even The Legend of Korra. I'm not sure if you ever watched any of that show, but that's a lot of people would even argue that it's even better. And I've seen a few episodes, I can see why. But that's a very interesting pick. Nice way to think outside the box.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I may have to put that as an honorable mention all of a sudden.
Yeah, man.
But anyway, I guess for my number 3, I'm going with something while it's something I think I'd like to have, it's actually something I can relate to. Because, knock on wood, I have yet to break a bone in my body before. So I want to keep it that way. So I think I'm going to go with, David Dunn's ability to be unbreakable from the movie Unbreakable.
Yeah.
That makes me Glass Man, by the way. Because I've broken like 14 bones.
I can't even fathom that kind of pain. I've never experienced that. Maybe I'm just not quite a daredevil enough. But on the subject of M. Night Shyamalan, as much as he completely screwed over The Last Airbender, I think Unbreakable is one of his better films.
I think
I would
so
say
too.
it's his best. Yeah,
it's good.
I could see that argument. It's a very consistent film, but I think that's an ability while I can relate to. It's definitely one I want to hold on to. And maybe if I ever get into a massive train accident, I'll test that theory.
Get back to that.
I don't want to test that, but I think it's I never want to go through that kind of pain of breaking a bone or anything like that. So I want to retain this ability to be unbreakable.
Depends on the bones. It's not too bad sometimes.
Unless it's like a femur.
It just depends on the bone.
Unless it's like a femur or something like that. But,
sure.
Oh God, I've sprained some joints and things like that, but never broken a bone. So I can't relate to it. But anyway, let's continue on just for the sake of time. What did you guys have at your number 2 pick? We'll toss to you first, Brian.
Number 2, I want to be able to do all things Groot.
You want to be Groot.
I would like to have a larger vocabulary than Groot.
I was just going to say, do you only want 3 words?
Well, makes conversation easy, but,
yeah, it does.
Small talk, you don't really have to talk about the weather a whole lot. Raining a lot, I am Groot. But yeah,
you can also dance. You can also dance pretty well.
The way his abilities were revealed throughout that film, like, when did you learn how to do that? Just kind of like,
sure, yeah.
I am Groot.
Yeah, I just Groot's the shit. So, yeah, why not? I want to be able to make myself in a big tree ball and protect my friends.
Yeah.
And then
have some
a little tiny
spore
sapling
lights and, yeah. Why not? I mean, Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like you get hacked apart, and then you can be Baby Groot
and dance.
Yeah.
Jackson
dance
5.
in a potted plant. Yeah. What's not to love?
Dancing is a valuable superpower to have.
Yes.
I agree.
Also, I'm sure I could win quite a few bar bets.
You probably. Yes.
Yeah, in fact, one of my honorable mentions is going to be John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever. That's actually not true.
Paul, what do you have at number 2?
All right. Well, once again, trying to think of. I am obviously an English man living in America. And what would be really nice for me to be able to get over to England from time to time? Flight.
Yeah.
Just how fast do you fly, by the way?
Oh, I don't know, really. No, never actually, bothered to time myself.
No?
Say, why don't we find out?
And how do you propose we do that?
Take a ride with me?
You mean I could fly?
Yeah, actually, I'd be handling the flying if that's okay.
This is utterly fantastic.
Oh, wait a minute. Where are you going?
Are you serious?
Sure. What's the matter? Don't you want to go? Okay. I don't need these.
I need a sweater. It must be kind of cold.
No, you'd be warm enough.
I want to be able to just take off and go, like, supersonic speed would be handy, but just being able to fly without aid of a several $100 plane ticket would be lovely. So,
So you also don't want the ability to be able to, spin the orbit of the Earth in the other opposite direction in reverse time.
Now I will,
and the Earth.
I will say one fan theory I've heard on that, which kind of makes sense, is that he's not making the Earth go back in time. He's going so fast that he's going back in time.
Yeah. Well, and that actually kind of, I was going to say a true theory, but Neil deGrasse Tyson had said that about the Flash, so you can say the same thing with Superman.
Did you hear that Star Talk episode?
Yeah, because he was saying if he gets to a certain enough speed that he will hit time travel.
Yeah, if you go faster than
FTL
light,
travel,
yeah.
Well, thank you, Neil deGrasse Tyson, for making me like that movie more now.
Because he also spoke to what you're saying, Brendan, with in what was it, Superman 2? I'm not sure which movie it was, but where he does try to get the Earth to go backwards. He said if that was to happen, what would happen is the Earth would just come to a stop, but because it's rotating, obviously at a really high speed, that if the Earth just slowed down a little bit, everyone would just start flying across the world. Like when you're in a car and you slam on your brakes and you go forward, like that motion that propels you forward, that's exactly what would happen, but at 100,000 miles per hour. So.
Oh God! So
we'd all die.
Wouldn't get,
yes,
the planet wouldn't get cooked like the movie The Core taught us.
We'd all die essentially. So
everything I know about science, I learned from the Core.
That was different.
So
that was
don't ruin anything.
That was the inside of the Earth that stopped spinning, not the outside.
True. Okay, yeah. It shows how much I pay attention during those films.
I actually enjoyed that film, so I kind of.
You're the guy. We found him.
I didn't buy it. I just enjoyed it.
Nice defense. Anyway, JD, what's your number 2?
My number 2, I think kind of goes back to something that you were talking about in your criteria, Brendan, in the sense that this is quote unquote not a superpower, but I think that it very much is. And I think if you don't think that this is a superpower, I think you're crazy.
I think I know where you're going, and I think it's going to be the same as my number 2.
Oh my God, if it's my number, I'm going to lose.
So my number 2, we'll see. My number 2 is the wealth that Batman has. His money, his moolah is his superpower. And having that kind of money, again, maybe not a superpower to some, I think it very much is, because it allows him to do whatever the hell he wants, which means being a vigilante at night. And
much in the way of Tony Stark, too.
Much in the way of Tony Stark, absolutely. So I think having that kind of money brings a lot of power, and it brings a lot of fun gadgets along the way. So I think it very much is his superpower. And the big difference between that and why I use Batman specifically is because while Tony Stark has a lot of money, I think his biggest superpower is his intelligence. And that's the difference for me. And not to say that Batman isn't dumb. I think he is a smart guy too, but they just use it very differently. I think Batman's wealth, though, is a key thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's awesome, and I wish I had it.
Definitely what makes him a superhero.
Yeah, and I wish I had it. So going back to my criteria.
And I'll agree with that, because and that's why I wanted to limit that that kind of aspect from my criteria, even though I originally thought I was going to include it as a criteria, but I decided against it because there are a lot of heroes out there that have, tangible things like that, but are able to use it as a quote-unquote superpower for them. Yeah, sure. And that's exactly what Bruce Wayne himself does here, and I think that's a great pick for that. In fact, it is an honorable mention for me. The one I thought you were going to pick, which I do have at my number 2, is you guys were talking about it. That is Tony Stark's intelligence. And yes, he does have the wealth like Batman does, but I think it's the fact that he's such a well-accomplished engineer, I think, is his superpower.
Yeah. I that's agree, yeah.
And someone like me who kind of worked in an electrical engineering field for a little bit. I'm not an engineer. I didn't study engineering. I did for a little bit and decided to do something different. But I've worked in lines of businesses where I worked with other electrical and mechanical engineers, and I understood what those guys did and what those guys knew. And I always thought it was kind of interesting. But if you know how to perfect that to the degree that Tony Stark has, it's a very, very valuable tool to have.
Yeah, sure.
And especially the way he's able to manipulate himself to keep himself alive from the shrapnel entering his heart, even little things like that. But a couple with the wealth that he has, he's able to build anything he wants. I love that. And even if it's as little as that small nuclear reactor I think he built that was able to create its own self-sustaining energy source that powered the Stark building in the first Avengers, just little things like that. I always thought it was interesting, and it's something I like. So Tony Stark's intelligence, engineering background is my number 2.
Yeah, I think that's a really great pick, Brennan, and it's an honorable mention for me. Or you could just kind of put it at pseudo number 2 if you want, but I went with Batman because I wanted his wealth, but that's how Batman uses it, and he uses it fantastically well. But I completely agree. Tony Stark's intelligence would also be awesome to have. The difference is I wouldn't know how to use that intelligence, but I can spend money like it's my job. So,
well, there you go. Well, that's how you relate. That's why it's a personal list.
Exactly. Yeah.
Surely, if you had the intelligence, you would then know what to do with it.
That's a fair point, though, too. Yes.
Fair point. Yeah.
But let's get to the nitty-gritty now, guys. Our number 1 pick for superpower in film. So, Brian, we'll toss it to you first, man. What's your number 1?
I thought you were going to nail it there. But mine is also Batman, not his wealth. This exists in the Nolanverse only. But his disappearing act. His ability to immediately vanish.
Yeah, sure.
I would also add Oliver Queen.
He's good at that too. Yes.
So I know, I don't care what the League of Shadows has taught you. You can't get off of a 50-story building without making a little noise.
Not even just a.
So I think it's fun to imagine him just hiding behind a giant air conditioning unit that's 3 feet away, you can see his cape sticking out, but Gordon just indulges him.
Oh no! Even better than that, he carries around a cardboard box that he hides in.
Yeah, I'm Gordon just looks like it's Batman. Just let him have this.
Just let him do his thing.
But he's really good at fighting people. Just not good at getting away.
The interesting thing, apparently, this is teachable because Catwoman learned how to do it in The Dark Knight Rises, which led Bruce Wayne to go. So that's what
that feels like. Yeah. That would be amazing. We've all been in a conversation that's going nowhere. And so, they look around the room and then, boom, they turn back around and you're gone. That'd be cool.
I like to think maybe he's just standing directly behind them as well. So they're just looking around, he's just ducking it back and forth.
And he'll do the little tap your shoulder trick and then you turn around and he's gone. Yeah.
That is a really interesting pick. I wouldn't have ever have thought of that, but that is so true. That is what he does.
He's just hanging on to a fire escape. How long do I have to hang here before he walks away?
Oh, that's so funny.
That's clever. But you pick a really interesting notion about that's very very repetitive notion that he has in the Dark Knight trilogy that I think has always been kind of interesting, and they even poke fun at it, like I mentioned in the third film. But that's. Having that ability, and I don't know how he does it. It's definitely just movie making that does it, but I have no idea how he actually. Yeah. It's great, yeah.
You're a good cop. One of the few. What do you want? Carmine Falcone brings in shipments of drugs every week. Nobody takes him down. Why?
He's paid up with the right people.
What will it take to bring him down?
Leverage on Judge Payton and the DA brave enough to prosecute.
Rachel Dawes.
Who are you?
Watch for my sign.
You're just one man. Now we're two. We.
Well, how about you, Paul? What's your number one?
Well, mine actually kind of ties into that. If you want to give him the superhuman ability, teleportation. I think just the ability to. I mean, let's take it as in the film Jumper, like anywhere you've seen or been to before. At a moment's notice, just I'm going to go there, and
so like fast travel in an RPG.
Basically. Right? But even without the loading screen. Like,
cut out the loading screen. Yes.
Basically, like flying without flying. So you basically just want to keep on getting back to where you're originally
you can go to England faster.
So if the teleporter's on the fritz, at least you can still fly.
Yeah, exactly. What I want is the ability to go somewhere for the least amount of money. That's what
That's what he's getting at.
Yes.
But yeah, it was.
Nice.
It's just one thing. Like ever since I first saw something with teleportation in it, I just thought that would make everything so much easier. And yes, I am lazy, but like you could just imagine, like, say you want to take a holiday in, I don't know, the Bahamas. What you normally do is you book off a couple of days from work, you plan your flights, just wait around in an airport. What you can do is Friday night after work, just teleport there. Sunday night, teleport back. There you go.
That's right. That would have been very useful for me this weekend. I would have avoided the whole cabin thing.
Yeah, or when you got there and you're like, oh, I didn't really like that.
But would you have teleportation lag as you have jet lag? Like,
that could be an interesting
question.
Like additional downfall of the thing. Like wherever you go to, you get the jet lag.
You don't mind technically being a new you when you arrive at your destination?
Well, no, that's only if you go through the teleportation machine. This would be quantum teleportation.
Okay, not by use of a teleporter.
Would you also have the ability to teleport? Would you also have the ability to teleport with others too?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you want to do a vacation with your family. Can you just teleport?
Could you all like hold hands?
I would do. Everyone link arms now. I would do the Nightcrawler teleportation, where like, as long as you have contact with someone being teleported.
No, I don't remember Jake Gyllenhaal having that ability. Did I miss something?
That's a total.
They cut that out because they thought it would be.
He was creepy enough without the teleportation.
Nice. Good pick. But yeah, as long I would definitely relate to that. As long as I had the ability to teleport with others, because like I would use it perfectly to go on the most exotic vacations ever. But I'd want to go with maybe either a significant other or family or whatever. And as long as I can do that with them, it's all hell's gonna break loose.
How much would your significant other hate you if you teleported there? I'll see you in 5 hours. I've been here for ages. Don't know what you're doing.
Would be handy though.
It probably wouldn't go over too well. But anyway, JD, what's your number one, man?
My number one is a little bit more boring and probably predictable, but it does go along the same notion as Paul was talking about with getting places faster, but this would probably be a little bit more physically exhausting. But for my number one, I've always been enthralled with the idea of web slinging.
Go web! Fly! Up and away, web! Shazam! Go! Go! Go, web, go!
Especially through a big city, I think would be a lot of fun. I'm a very adventurous guy at spirit. I like being outdoors, like hiking. I've always wanted to go skydiving. I'm not afraid of heights. So I love doing things like that. And so the idea of standing on a really tall building and swinging throughout the city is very exciting to me. And so it is a great combination for me personally with my criteria in terms of this would be balls out fun to have, but would also be useful in the sense that I don't have to wait for the subway or taxi or traffic or whatever. I can just get to where I need to be relatively fast. And who knows, maybe I'll run across some guy mugging a woman, and it'd be helpful in that situation too. So who knows? But it would be very useful to my life and something that would be fun to have on top of it. So that's why it makes my number one.
Or just swinging in general. I mean, you could learn that from Shia LaBeouf from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
You could do that too. Not quite as exciting, and you can only use it in one location, but besides that.
So which version would you want? Tobey Maguire, where he has the ability to generate it himself, or Andrew Garfield, where he has to build the...
No, yeah, it would have to be the Tobey Maguire version where it's kind of automatic. I wouldn't have the intelligence to make that, and I would also be afraid that I would run out. You know, it's just a cartridge, right? So what if the thing just ran out? Like, at least with Tobey Maguire's, it's just kind of ingrained as part of your DNA, so it just is always there.
Until you start doubting yourself.
Until you start doubting yourself, yes. Which I'm okay with. I have great self-confidence, so...
And great power is coming great responsibility.
Exactly.
Or great irresponsibility, apparently, if you're just going to go...
Oh, yeah, thank you for that, Deadpool.
Exactly.
But that's a good pick, JD, and I can and it was a close honorable mention for me, and there was just other ones that kind of weeded it out, but I definitely did consider it. It's a very good pick. But yeah, for my number one, I'll spend only a little bit of time on it because we did talk about it briefly already, and it's also kind of a boring pick, but I just feel like I would get the most use out of Professor X and basically just the power of the mind is what I'm just calling it.
Oh yeah.
But is the future truly set? Or can we change our fate?
We need your help, Charles. Use your power. Bring the X-Men together. You sure about this? Absolutely not.
Not just the ability to read minds, but the ability to control minds as well. Now, I don't want everything that he can do because I don't want to be in a wheelchair. Like I mentioned, I want to still be unbreakable. But
yeah, exactly.
But I just feel like there's a lot of things that I could do that I think would be a personal gain. Like, for example, if you have the power of Professor X, you could easily manipulate the minds of those in the stock market for your own financial gain. There's just so much you can do with that. Not that I would condone ever doing that, but that's
not that I would ever do that or anything.
No.
But
Yeah. But if I had
I'm
this
just giving
power,
an example.
I would do it.
I'm just giving an example of how well you can manipulate that kind of power because I feel like you have that kind of power that Professor X have. You potentially have the ability to almost do anything, and just from the comfort of your own home without having to go anywhere, and that's what I just find kind of fascinating. So, and that's kind of why I went with it because I feel like there is a lot of damage that you're not damage, but you could be very, very dangerous with that kind of ability that he has. And when you learn how to control it, no one will mess with you if they know you have that ability. And that's kind of why I want it. I think I'd like to have that. And it's kind of a boring pick, like I mentioned, but it's my number one for that reason.
It's a good one, man. My only thing with it is I feel like it could be potentially very overwhelming. Like, I feel like if I had it, I would be like young Charles in Days of Future Past, where he's like, I can't do this. It's driving me crazy. Like, that would be me.
And I'm assuming to the point that when I have it, I know how to control it very well. And that I guess I'm skipping over that.
You're skipping over the growing pains.
I'm imagining a perfect scenario which will never ever happen.
I actually think whenever I think about this, I think that the film Bruce Almighty did it best when he's hearing all the prayers and it's just weighing down on him. Like, that's what I imagine when you first get it and you just hear everything.
Everybody, yeah.
Oh man, okay. Now I don't want this as my number one. Okay, I gotta quit.
That's why I wanted to be a fly on the wall.
You should be able to telepathically tell them all to shut up at once, right? Like,
That's exactly it. Yeah, just put on that helmet and say, "Shut the hell up, everybody!"
Well,
come on,
I'm
trying to sleep.
Well, that's the thing. If you tell everyone to shut the hell up, that you're then going to get an influx of people saying, "Wait, why can't I speak anymore? This is really annoying. What's going on?" So you're just going to create
everybody
more
mad.
for yourself.
Well, then that's when you go on a murderous rampage.
It's just never gonna end. But I think it'd be fun regardless. But anyway, before we move on, did you guys have any honorable mentions that you wanted to quickly mention quickly? We'll toss to you first, Brian.
Not that I was briefly thinking Spider-Man, as my number 3 honorable mention. Rogue, I was thinking, has an honorable mention.
I would hate having that.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
I don't like touching people anyway. So
well, I don't either. I don't either. But like, I would hate not being able to touch my wife at any point. Like that would. Well, yeah. I mean that's me.
That's romantic.
Okay.
Yes.
I look good in gloves, so why not? You know?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but it didn't make the list for me.
I did wonder why you were
wasn't
wearing
enough
those.
there. I mean, it wasn't as cool as Groot. So did you have any honorable mentions?
Nah, I mean along the lines of Batman's. Like, yeah, just money. I would take the wealth that they all have.
Just money.
Yeah, because I mean, you see those memes all over the place. It's like money is the best superpower. Like,
it is. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, unfortunately it is, but you're right. It is. I mean, it gives you a lot of power you don't realize you have. But anyway, JD, how about you? Honorable mentions.
Well, fans of our show will know I'm a huge fan of Flight, so I kept that as an honorable mention because that's an easy one for me. Although I would specifically pick Iron Man because at least in the suit, it kind of feels like I'm flying an aircraft. So I would probably pick that. Telekinesis, of course, would be fun. I would like to replicate anyone like Loki does. I think would be an interesting power to have. How about Wolverine's healing? I may break a bone, but at least I'd heal awfully fast, and maybe I could have some fun claws in the middle of that too.
But then you would never die.
But then I would never die, and maybe that could be a problem later on.
Yeah. I mean, you remember seeing Only Lovers Left Alive? They got really bored.
They did. Oh, speaking of Loki. Anyway, teleportation would be fun. I also had on like quick speed, like Quicksilver or the Flash or something like that. And here,
or Dash.
Absolutely. A fun one that's kind of out of left field is ice manipulation, like Iceman. Because I'm a big hockey guy, so if it's August 9th and it's just Sunday afternoon and it's 90 degrees, but I still want to play some hockey, I can do that. So I think that would be a lot of fun for me to have.
You're not going to go the corny route and do some roller hockey?
Oh, I've played me a lot of roller hockey growing up.
I have too.
Man.
That was what I only played before.
Yeah, like you say corny, it's very serious in a lot of circles, and I've done a lot of traveling and played in a lot of fun tournaments with some roller hockey too, man.
I can relate. I understand. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as far as honorable mentions for me, I mean, I pretty much, as far as what you guys have already mentioned, either in your top three or as your own honorable mentions, I already had as my honorable mentions as well. The only one I'll mention that wasn't said was, I guess, Sue Storm's ability to go invisible. And kind of, I guess, kind of the reason why I like this is kind of the same reasons you like the idea of being a fly in the wall, JD, with Ant-Man's powers, and that's kind of the same reason why I said invisibility, but... I mean, if you got the power of the mind like Professor X, you don't really need to put the work to follow people and stay invisible around them. So that's why I left it off my list.
And that's fair. I just would be the opposite. I wouldn't want the idea of feeling overwhelmed. I would rather put in the work.
Yeah, and I understand that. I'm just assuming that I'm able to control it, that I don't need to get frustrated in that sense. Fair. But it's a superpower. I mean, these aren't real to begin with.
Yeah. Why are we arguing? Yes.
Let's just apply some logic here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's just who we are. You know, we provide logic to superpowers. It makes no sense whatsoever.
I know.
But that's all I had for honorable mentions for me.
Anyway, you can let us know if you like our picks or not. You can let us know by leaving a comment on Facebook or Twitter. Email us InSessionFilm@gmail.com or on our website, InSessionFilm.com.
All right, before we move on, let's talk about this week's poll.
It's real bad, okay? I don't like those numbers at all.
Just one poll? Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science. This is math.
All right, so for this week's poll, with the subject of Fant Four Stick just coming out, we decided to ask, what is your favorite Marvel film not within the MCU? And since most of these films suck, we just kind of started picking out all the films that were technically good, so we had some competition here. We listed Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, also The Amazing Spider-Man, X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, Blade, The Punisher, and then the 2005 Fantastic Four. And then we also had a write-in option. Just for the sake of time, we'll get right to the results, but winning the poll at 33.3% is exactly who I expected was going to win. That was X-Men Days of Future Past. Arguably, probably, at least coincidentally, probably the best X-Men film at least made so far. At least it's one of my favorites. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it is a very, very good film. Coming in at second place at 25% was Spider-Man 2, which is probably my favorite superhero film of all time.
I'm with you, man.
That's at least for me. That's at least for me. I know there's some people might not agree, but I love this film. I'm glad it at least got recognition here. And third place at 13.9% was X-Men First Class. Probably my favorite X-Men film. Maybe not the best, but my personal favorite. So I'm glad that's getting recognition as well. I think our viewers have good taste. Our listeners have good taste.
Too. I mean, most of the responses we got on Facebook or Twitter were for Days of Future Past and Spider-Man 2. And I'm with you more, Brendan. I love Days of Future Past, and it's my favorite X-Men film, but I would probably pick Spider-Man 2, and is probably my favorite superhero movie of all time. Avengers is very, very close, though. So I guess if we were going to say non-team superhero films, it would certainly easily be my number one. But we also did get a couple of write-in options for X-Men 2, so that was one that a lot of people threw out there as well.
I kind of figured we'd get some for that one. In fact, we almost put it on the list, but just for the sake of space, we didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, anyway, thanks everybody that voted. We really do appreciate it, whether it was on the website or on social media. We really do appreciate all the votes. And coming up next, we are going to do Brendan's favorite segment that we do called the Rants and Raves. And I promise I will do no more Fox ranting this time around. I did enough of that already. So stay tuned.
We all did.
Yes, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We do it for fun. We just do it for fun. Dirty ENT. We do it dirty. Bad boy. Nelly, Diddy, Murphy, Lee. This is history, baby. We do it for fun. Stack them. Come on now. And the bad boy. I see you, Kudos. Bad Boys 2, the soundtrack. Let's go. Yeah. Who your name is? Where you from? Turn around. Who you came with? Is that your ass or your mama have reindeer? I can't explain it, but damn, so glad you came here. I'm still a sucker for cornrows. I never changed that. Your body is baby mama, but where your brains at? Still the same cat when I was younger, running with bad boys. But now I'm older, rockin' solar, running with bad boys. Here come another man, unlike no other man. Candy coated, switching every other lane. Y'all help me, won't you please help me? Eighth girl this week, and it's only Tuesday. I like the cocky, bow-legged ones, like white and Dominicans, Hispanics and Asians. We shaking for Nelly's son.
Hey guys, just want to pause for a quick second to say a huge thank you to everyone that is supporting the show. And since we cannot do this without spending a little bit of money, your support really goes a long way. And there's a couple ways that you can help us out. One, if you go listen to our bonus content, you can do that on our site for just a small donation of 99 cents. You just go to our site, you'll see the bonus content tab there in our main menu, and you can check out all the fun stuff that we have there. They actually are free to listen to, but we do encourage and appreciate that small donation. It really goes a long way. Another way that you can help us out, and one of my favorite platforms out there, is patreon.com. Essentially, you go there and you can sign up to donate per show, per main show that is, only the main shows. And we got some really cool levels out there where we're going to give away some free stuff. And who doesn't like free stuff? And you can even pick out a movie for us to review on the show. It's pretty cool. And if you go there, patreon.com/InSessionFilm, sign up for a fun level, and we'll get back to you on that free gear. And you can also donate directly to the show via PayPal, whether it's a one-time donation or a monthly subscription. We have a couple different levels there as well. Go to InSessionFilm.com/donate. You'll see the PayPal button right there, all the information you need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate everyone's support in that regard as well. And on the subject of getting some, not necessarily free stuff, but getting some stuff in the process, we do have the InSession Film store out there right now, where if you want to get an InSession Film item, or just like either like a mug or like a tie or an iPhone case or anything like that with our logo slapped right on it, you can do so by going to the InSession Film store at InSessionFilm.com/store. And if there's an item on there that you don't see that you would like, we can even get something customized for you. It's a very interesting way to help support us, as well as also help market us. Trust me, if you're going to give your money to anything, do this instead of giving it to Fox for Fantastic Four. We do not condone that.
Yes.
But that's also a great way to support us. And lastly, we are sponsored by Audible.com. And with Audible, if you go to audibletrial.com/InSessionFilm, you can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial. And over here at Audible, there's over 150,000 titles that you can choose from for either your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Perhaps you want to read up on the latest superhero collateral that they've got available there from Marvel, or perhaps you want to catch up on Star Wars collateral with a lot of these new releases coming out in preparation for The Force Awakens. They've got a lot of great stuff coming out. Perhaps you want to read up on that. Audible will have some of that stuff available for you as well, and easy access at your disposal, and also a great way to support us as well.
Absolutely. No matter what you do, even just small stuff like subscribing to the show, a like on Facebook, or a follow on Twitter, all goes a really, really long way, and we really do appreciate everyone's support.
Cause we gon' burn it till the lights come on, and then my song stop fucking cause my mic's still on.
Hi, this is Greg.
This is Chuck.
And this is Dan. And we are Talking in Circles. Because the world needs another podcast, we are here as Geekcast Radio's newest edition.
And as the title says, each week we get lost in conversation about a wide range of topics, including movies, comics, games, art, TV, and even occasionally sports.
We play games and discuss pivotal topics like who would win in a fight, the Kool-Aid Man or Tony the Tiger, and examine the hot-button issues of the world of geekdom. We keep things fresh by taking timeless topics in new directions.
We are simply three friends having a fun time talking about life's most fascinating foibles.
Stay connected with us every Tuesday on iTunes or at geekcastradio.com.
You're listening to the InSession Film Podcast. This is episode 129, and now we're going to be continuing a segment we call Rants and Raves.
Good morning. Can I take your order? Can I get a tall chai?
A large black coffee.
A what?
Large black coffee.
Do you mean a venti?
No, I mean a large.
He means a venti. Yeah, the biggest one you got. Venti is large.
No, venti is 20.
Danny.
Yeah. Large is large. In fact, tall is large, and grande is Spanish for large. Venti's the only one that doesn't mean large. It's also the only one that's Italian. Congratulations, you're stupid in 3 languages.
All right, guys, this is pretty simple. We're just going to pick a movie-related topic, and we're either going to rant about it or we're going to rave about it. Let's start with you, Paul. What's your first one? You ranting or you raving this week?
I have 2 rants.
Okay.
That's rants for the English
Yes,
speakers.
yes. Thank you very much.
I got to throw in a jab at your nationality. So.
He's ranting.
However, I do believe I'm the only one here speaking the Queen's English. So.
Unlike all the other Robert Hoods.
Yeah, the rest of us are speaking American.
English accent.
American.
Go ahead.
Well, my first... I think both of these I had talked about before on our own podcast, but the first one is trailers.
Trailers.
What
we have
the hell?
Talked ad
going
nauseum
on?
about trailers. Yeah.
I mean, all of these trailers that are coming out now that either give away absolutely everything, so there's no point in seeing the film, or they will not give away everything, but they will give away the twist that's within the last 10 minutes.
Yeah,
like
for people
looking at you,
like,
Terminator Genesis.
Yeah. Well, Paul has great memory retention. Like a lot of people can watch a trailer and then they forget about it until that moment's actually happening. I think it's always in the back of Paul's head.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I can never switch off my brain when I'm watching a film. For instance, the first Avengers film. They showed the trailer, like. Well, they had some of the action bits, some of the team bits, and then they had a bit where the Hulk catches Iron Man. So I'm watching the entire film thinking, well, that hasn't happened yet, that hasn't happened yet, that hasn't happened yet, and then he goes up in space, it's like, he's not in danger, he's not in danger, he's not in danger, oh look, he caught him. Like, it was this thing that just completely ruined a bit that could have been like, are they actually, like, I didn't even have that, maybe they will bit in there, because it's like, no, that still needs to happen. So, there's just all of these.
So, what's your
times.
tactic? Do you? I mean, you can avoid them if you, but it is hard. I mean, if you're just watching regular television or something, or
well, that's the thing. I only have Hulu and Netflix, so I don't have cable television. I don't get to see them that way. I will look up the first trailer that comes out for film because normally they don't do that bad a job.
Normally the teasers are
now,
better. They're
if
better,
it's something, I will do this at a movie theater, but I do get some looks, understandably, but I will close my eyes. If it's nothing, I'll still hear the audio.
Me too, Brian.
But if it's nothing, I don't want to know anything about it. I want to go in it fresh. I already like the source material. I will close my eyes. I don't want to see what's going on. It's just 2 minutes, and
Well, I'll say my 2 favorite recent trailers that have come out have been the Suicide Squad trailer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because, so Brian has seen this one maybe 1,000 times.
I've seen it more than Billy Madison, and I've been watching Billy Madison for 20 years.
But and the second one is the Deadpool trailer.
Yeah.
The reason I like the Suicide Squad trailer is it doesn't tell you anything other than what
well,
the
there's
Suicide
enough
Squad
time to
is.
forget about it too.
Yeah.
We got over a year.
And the reason I like
Sure.
the Deadpool trailer is because of the nature of Deadpool, you have zero guarantee that anything in the trailer is going to be in the film. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure maybe 50% of it will actually be something in the film, but yeah, they could have made it and then make a joke about the trailer in the film where it's like, well, that didn't happen. Like, this was different or something. So that's why I like those ones. And all of these other trailers.
Do you think teasers are a better route to go? Like a 30-second teaser?
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably. I would say that for the most part, when it comes to, like, let's say action films, a teaser is best. Now, when it comes to a dramatic film, maybe a full one would work.
Yeah, if people are going to go see the next Batman movie, you don't need to watch, to watch a 3-minute trailer on it. A 20-second teaser is going to get people excited. But if you're trying to get to people to see your independent romantic comedy, you want a trailer.
Well, that's the thing.
See, even that is treading dangerous water there too, especially with comedies, because it's so easy to throw in the best 3 or 4 jokes in a trailer, and then you get to the movie and, well, that's all you've seen, and there's nothing about it that is really that appealing to you after that.
Now something I don't mind is, say, the trailer for Despicable Me showed you all of the funny bits with the Minions, and then you saw the film and it wasn't a comedy. It was actually a serious story. I'm fine with that. Misdirection is perfectly okay by me.
Yeah, I would. If it's a trailer, I want it to be limited to first act material. Like, I don't want anything after the first act.
Yeah. If there's anything that could possibly hint at something else, I don't want it.
Dark Knight, I go back to it with Paul all the time. Showing that stadium explode just took all the air out of that excitement of that moment, because I knew what was coming.
Well, that's.
You could figure out what's coming there by that point anyway. Yeah. But I'm waiting for that a half hour before we even get to it.
Even though you can predict that it's coming while watching the film, it's the seeing it is really the excitement of it. But the fact that you know what it looks like then too takes out that suspense, and that's one of my biggest things about these trailers. And you're talking about the Avengers trailer specifically. One of my biggest gripes is it shows probably the best shot of the entire film in the trailer, which is that revolving money shot of all the Avengers getting ready for battle, and that is seeing that for the first time in the movie, not knowing that's coming, is a fist in the air moment. I mean, that is it's wonderful, but knowing that's coming it takes out that joy.
I know.
That joy's gone.
And the Ultron trailers showed both big money shots in the trailer.
Hated that.
Yeah, it was stupid. I completely agree, though. It is a very valid complaint. I have very much ranted about that on the show quite a bit as well. For the sake of time, though, let's move on. Brian, you ranting or raving this week?
No surprise to Paul, I'm ranting.
All right.
I wish I had an experience recently as of yesterday to kind of motivate me more. But
what could this possibly be about?
I would like to talk about theater etiquette.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I do realize I'm a bit on the high end of the spectrum. And by bit, I'm topping it off. I am at the high end of the spectrum as far as my theater experience, how I would like that to go. It's why I try to avoid the theater if I can, if I have another way to see a film. Or I'll wait a few weeks so it's not so crowded. But number one now bugs me, like when they have the on-screen display. Now all they talk about is the phone, turning your phone off, not shutting your own damn mouth up. Which is just as distracted, even more so, I would say.
Didn't they used to say something
yeah,
like
before
that?
everyone had a pocket computer, they would have. They would say, don't talk during the movie,
Okay, so question, Brian.
Yes.
What if it's the trailers, the lights are still up, and I want to avoid the trailers, so I get on my phone so I'm not paying attention to the trailer? Yay or nay?
Are you talking?
I'm not talking. I'm completely quiet. I'm just trying to zone out of the trailer. The lights are still on, so they're not like complete. It's not completely dark.
Trailers are etiquette purgatory. So
there's an in between.
Yeah. So I will allow for some talking, even though it's like eye rolling that everyone feels they have to comment with their companion after every trailer. I should read the books on it. I did hear yesterday. We heard it was like the Maze Runner sequel, and the guy's like, I need to read those books right behind me.
Oh yeah, Batman behind you?
Yeah. And I'm like, great. And I think we should see that one. That one doesn't look very good. Like, okay, fine, I'll give you that. Like, I don't feel the need to do that, but I understand. Okay, fine. It's like, you're watching it. I don't watch an Arby's commercial. I think we should get some of those.
Well, speak for yourself. Fair enough.
I think it. I don't say it. So yeah, the talking just drives me crazy. It's one thing. It kind of depends what the movie is, what the feel of the movie. A comedy, obviously, a little more relaxed. I would say. You're laughing.
Well, there's a difference between laughing and just talking.
Exactly. What was it? I didn't mind this at all because it was Mordecai, but someone answered the phone during Mordecai, so at least I had something interesting to listen to for a minute.
Yeah, just in case.
We'll forgive that one.
Yeah, just in case nobody knows, that didn't go down well with us.
Or anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like. He was probably praying for a phone call, but...
He probably was, by answering it.
But yeah, the talking, this is where I get into the higher end of the spectrum. I think popcorn is the worst movie snack ever. Why? The loudest snack that exists.
Are you saying that you don't want to hear...
I mean,
all the time?
You're trying to watch Schindler's List. Do you want to hear someone go...
Yeah. People getting shot left and right.
That's just a horrid image right there.
Yeah. Like, ooh, this is really interesting.
Hey,
a lot of Jews dying here.
I would take that though over the asshole that's trying to open up their bunch of crunch, and you hear the sound of the paper being.
Oh, just
unwrapped.
open it quickly. If you're gonna make a noise, open it quickly. Don't take 10 minutes to try to quietly open your package.
I will admit I have done that, thinking in my head the whole time. But okay, I'll do it slowly. It won't make as much noise. That's a big rip. And then I realized afterwards, I was like, I'm just.
You've been making noise for 7 minutes now. Shut up.
Just get it over.
Open your damn chewy sweethearts and be done with it.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Just get it done with.
But yeah, my feeling is we've all paid the same amount of money, unless we're seniors or children, whatever, to have this experience. It's not your living room. It's not just you and that person you're with. It's different. Yes, it's a different experience. There needs to be a little common ground, a little respect for everyone else's experience.
Yeah.
And that's where I run into trouble, whereas I feel like almost, at least all of my theater experiences, most of them, I feel like most people don't give a shit.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm actually okay to a certain extent with phones because they're dim enough that it doesn't bother me personally, unless it's like super bright and all of a sudden Jesus showed up in the movie theater. I don't necessarily like that, but most of the time I'm okay with it. But the talking is the big thing with me too, because I'm trying to sit here and engage with the movie, and especially like I've been in movie theaters where it's the cathartic moment of the movie, it's the emotional part of it, and people are like laughing behind me and around, and it drives me crazy. I'd rather stare at their phones the whole time.
Yeah.
And other than hearing them talk when they shouldn't be talking. If you're laughing at a comedy, that's fine, but the talking drives me nuts too.
I've just had an idea. I've just had $1 million idea. How about we make a cinema where every single seat has a pair of headphones?
Yeah.
So like say everyone sits down, puts their headphones on, and you get the sound directly into your ears, not necessarily blocking out everything, but enough.
Yeah.
Because then the people that want to talk to each other aren't actually watching the film. They have to take their headphones off and talk to each other. So
if you get a petition going, I will sign it immediately.
Same here.
When I run my theater, I'm just going to walk around and smack people. Smack the popcorn out of their hands, and you don't get your $10 back.
In every single theater, have one of those noise meters, and if it goes above a certain bit, just have warning klaxons going.
You get a punch card. You get a punch card, and you get 3 punches in that card. Nope, you're not coming back to this theater. Sorry.
There you go. All right, let's move on. Brendan, you ranting or raving, man?
I'm not really sure. There's something I want to talk about, and I think it's more of a rant, believe it or not, but I wanted to pick something on the subject of superhero films, since we just talked about Fanforstic, and I'm going to keep calling it that.
Fair enough.
But recently, there was an announcement made regarding Batman v Superman. And the announcement was that the movie was screened for Warner Brothers executives, and apparently they gave the movie not only a standing ovation, but they also decided to give more work and contract time to Ben Affleck to spend more time as Bruce Wayne and Batman, which would delay some of his other director projects he was currently starting to work on. To many people, this would seem like a good sign for Batman v Superman. Me personally, I'm taking that with a small grain of salt. And that's kind of why I'm ranting. The biggest rant is because I would really just like to see more work of creative work, or at least like work that's not within this universe from Ben Affleck. He may direct a standalone Batman film at one point. That's fine, but I like this guy as a director. I think he's 3 for 3, and I think kind of hindering him from getting that ability to veer outside this world and do his own thing, I think is a bit disappointing. Sure. So that's kind of why I'm ranting a little bit on it. I'm also just. I don't care what these Warner Brothers execs say if they really like this film or not. I mean, I still have no faith in this film yet until I see it for myself. So I'm taking this with such a small grain of salt. And from what I've seen, the only thing they're praising is Ben Affleck's performance. The movie could still be crap, and we just haven't seen them say anything. But all I know is they gave the movie a standing ovation because they like Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. So I guess I'm kind of ranting not only because I want to see more work from Ben Affleck outside of this world, and I'm excited to see him as Bruce Wayne. Don't get me wrong, but I think this is going to hinder what I also love at. I'd like to see him be able to do all this at once. That's what excites me. So, and I'm also kind of ranting as I think people may be jumping to conclusions a bit, like, oh, this movie's going to be great. Oh, you hear this news, it's going to be great. Guys, just wait. I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but don't jump to these conclusions yet, because these are just executives from Warner Brothers. They could be giving it a standing ovation because they realize they can get a lot of money off of Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne now. But that's why I'm kind of ranting on it. But it could be good. They could be right. I don't know yet.
I'm 1,000% in your camp on this, Brendan. And, you know, the one thing that I will say that it gives me a little bit of hope is the fact that Ben Affleck is a huge fan of this character, and he looks awesome in the trailer. So if he can continue to embody that character, and I love him as a director, so if he continues to do more Batman movies, I'm perfectly okay with that, at least so far, because he's proven his worth to me, and I like that.
Sure.
So that gives me a little bit of hope. The other thing, too, that I can sort of kind of buy into is that earlier this year, there were similar reports about Disney execs essentially doing the exact same thing for Inside Out. And again, you were very, taking that with a grain of salt. I was very excited to hear that news.
Sure.
And the movie came out, and now it's my current favorite film of the year so far. So that could mean something. But this similar report, outside of the Ben Affleck aspects, also came out when Man of Steel came out. Guess what? I hated that movie.
Yep.
So the execs,
rightfully so.
So the execs over at WB, them getting excited about their own movie doesn't really enthrall me a ton. Does it get me a little bit excited because they don't do this for every film? Maybe a little bit. But like you're saying, take it with a grain of salt. The thing that does excite me is Affleck. I'm liking him being in here longer. Could mean that I'm okay with that, but I agree with you, Brennan. I would like to see him do more outside this universe.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I am too.
This sounds to me exactly the same as if Budweiser came out and said, "This newest beer, we really like it." Yeah, we probably like it too.
Everyone should drink Bud Light Lime, no matter how disgusting it may be.
Oh, perfect
Touché.
Analogy. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, just end it at that. Wait, let's not talk about this because that's just icing on. That's the cherry on top of the icing on the cake.
More than a
We're
grain of
done.
salt. I'm taking it with a pallet of salt.
Oh wow.
I mean, but and again, I guess to play devil's advocate a little bit, Budweiser doesn't do that for every beer, and WB doesn't do that for every film that they have on their slate either. So it's kind of this give and take where they don't do that, but of course they're going to.
Well,
if they have that kind of
so
reaction.
much at stake here, though.
Yeah, I agree. I
that's the
agree.
thing.
There's a lot of money on the table. Absolutely.
Yeah, their last film outing didn't do too well, and this
Yeah.
one is suddenly so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Imagine that, right? So,
Seriously.
I agree. That's why you have to take it with a grain of salt. You just never know. So,
Yeah.
anyway, on that note, very good stuff. For mine, I'm going to be raving. And maybe I'm in this boat alone, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm very much comfortable with it because earlier this last week, Sony announced that there is going to be a Bad Boys 3 and 4 coming out in 2017 and 2019, respectively. And I know a lot of people are hating on the Michael Bay wagon right now, and for good reason in a lot of ways, but I will say...
I raised my hand.
Yes, of course you did. And a lot of people are, that's perfectly okay. And I'm assuming that maybe he's coming back, but maybe he won't. But I love the Bad Boys movies. I love Bad Boys 2, even though a lot of people... I love it. For me, it is so hilarious, and I love the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. So I went back and I did some of the math, Brendan, and the Bad Boys films have made... a couple, actually, they've made 5 top 3 lists for me before. They top 3 action movies, top 3 car chases, top 3 Will Smith movies. Recently, on episode 111, I had them in my list for top 3 absurd action scenes, and I forgot about this, and then I quickly looked it up right before we started. But on episode 21, the Pacific Rim episode, we did our top 3 Jaeger pilot duos, 2 characters from film that we'd like to see fight in a Jaeger. And these guys made my number 1 for that show because I love these two together. I don't care what you say about Martin Lawrence or Will Smith. Together on screen as these characters, they are hilarious. In fact, it was, earlier I brought up Hyro from the True Bromance Film Podcast. The first time that I heard that show, those guys reminded me of these two characters because they... almost hate each other. They argue like a married couple all the time, but yet obviously there's that bro camaraderie that they have too. They obviously love each other to death, and that balance I feel like is incredibly compelling on screen in those movies. So I have a lot of fun with them. I absolutely have a lot of fun with them. The story, to me, it doesn't matter to me how disjointed the narratives are or the crazy, absurd places they go. Like when they go to Cuba in the second one, like none of that matters to me because it's fun. Like these characters are a lot of fun. I mean, they are driving down the hillside in Cuba in a very intense situation, and Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are still yelling at each other. Like, it is hilarious to me. So I am 1,000% down for these two movies, and I will be the first in line to see both of them.
Yeah, I first off, I'm going to have to say these guys these films are now in your penalty box. I don't want to see them on a top 3 for you ever again. It's for at least a while.
They're going to have to be. They're going to have to be.
But I have fun with these movies too. Now, I guess my question is, when they make Bad Boys 3 and 4, I don't, from what I've heard, I don't think Michael Bay is coming back to direct them. Do you want to see Michael Bay come back to direct these films, or would you rather them see him give them to someone else?
That's a really good question, and my answer is yes. And the reason why is going back to something that you and I were talking about with this new movie that he has coming out, and even last week when I was talking about The Rock. Like, I feel like Michael Bay needs to get away from the Transformers aroma that a lot of people are hating on, and what he needs to do is get back to these kind of things that people like. People liked when he did Armageddon or when he did The Rock, and I think this new movie he has coming out is kind of in that same vein. It looks like it could be a really good step. And, I even argued for Pain and Gain. I really liked that movie. I like it when he steps away from Transformers and gives us these smaller action comedies is what they are. I feel like he does those really, really well. So for me, I would love to see him get back to this franchise. I really, really like those first 2 movies, and I would love to see him back with these characters, making them funny, but making the action the way that he makes action, I'm perfectly okay with. So I'm okay with other directors getting involved as long as the chemistry between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith is the same. If that changes, then yes, get get Michael Bay back in here, because that's the thing that I love.
I think I'm about to shock Paul, because I am well documented on my Michael Bay hatred. But I think he is suited for those type of films.
I agree.
I think those are what he needs to be doing, is the action where you're allowed to suspend your disbelief a little more, where you can have a car flip over 47 times, and it's totally fine. He needs to stop ruining cartoons from my childhood, is what he needs to stop doing.
Mid-90s.
He's already done enough damage there.
Mid-90s action, Michael Bay, is what you want.
Yes, I mean, the only other person, which is impossible unless, we have some sort of resurrection power, would be Tony Scott, I think. Right. But, because no one else, I think, made those type of movies better than Tony Scott. But Michael Bay, I think, since he's, he's already been with the material, I'd say leave him.
Well, and the reason why I asked is because from what I guess, who was a rumored director to be doing Bad Boys 3? Wasn't it Joe Carnahan, I think?
Might be, and I like Joe Carnahan, so I'd be perfectly fine with that.
See, I wouldn't be, and it's not that I think he's a bad director. I think he really is. And what was his most? He did The Gray with Liam Neeson.
Yep.
Like when I look at a film like that, and I think Bad Boys, I was like, I don't want this guy touching. He's going to turn into a self-serious fest, and I don't.
He very much could.
And I think that's the wrong kind of director for that. That's why I brought up the question, because if he's the rumored director, I'm gonna. As much as I think he is a solid filmmaker in his own right, I think sometimes you just got to know how to match traits with a certain aesthetic that belongs to that film, and I think he might be a bit too self-serious. That's just my personal opinion.
And that's a good point, and I think that kind of goes back to my concerns of getting the chemistry between these two actors, and that kind of tone that I want from this. The one thing that I feel like he could bring to the table is actually making a good movie that people walk out and go, hey, that was something I can recommend to somebody. Because I'm not arguing that Bad Boys 2 is a great movie. It's one that I love. I mean, it has a lot of problems, but the problems of those movies I don't give a shit about, because I love these characters and I like the way Michael Bay handles them. It's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, well, so it's about expectations. If you just expect to have a good time, that's all you need to go into that movie.
Exactly. No. So it's kind of this give and take, where I think Joe Carnahan could come in and make a good movie, and I'd be okay with that too. And I think Michael Bay could come in and probably make a mediocre movie, but one I just have a lot of fun with, and I'm okay with that too.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to turn everyone into Danny Bustman here and just say I could care less, because I have never seen Bad Boys 1 or 2. So.
You mean you ain't seen Bad Boys 2?
That's what I mean, yes.
Have you ever fired your gun in there while jumping?
Yes, I've never fired my gun in the air while jumping, no.
Okay. The thing for Bad Boys 2 is if you walk out of that movie and you like the scene where Reggie goes to pick up, Marcus's daughter, if you like that scene, then nothing else matters, right? Because that scene, it's not action-oriented. It's just those two characters being themselves, and it's hilarious. Or them at the store with all the cameras around them. Again, not action-oriented. If you like those scenes, then you're going to have a lot of fun with this movie. And if you hate them, you're going to hate the movie. That's all these movies are. Nothing more, nothing less. So.
I completely agree.
Reasonable expectations, that's all.
Absolutely. Anyway, that'll do it for Rants and Raves this week. That was a lot of fun, though, guys.
Indeed. So for those out there, let us know if you agree or disagree with what we had to rant or rave about this week. You could leave us a comment on Facebook or on Twitter, or email us at InSessionFilm@gmail.com, but we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we finish out the show today, thanks, Paul and Brian, for joining us once again. This was an absolute blast.
You're welcome. Love it anytime. And we love being involved with you guys.
Seriously, and even if it is just the one of us, if you call, chances are we'll pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about your guys' awesome podcast, and where can we find you guys on the internet?
I'll let Brian lead this one.
Oh, really?
Yes. You never get to do it, so you can do it now.
Well, yes, why not now? Well, best way to get a hold of us is Twitter at Blokebusters, of course, Facebook.com/Blokebusters, and was it webs dot...
Blokebusters.webs.com.
See, this is why you need to do it, Paul.
Yeah, I'm trying to give you a chance, Brian.
He's taking the training wheels off, and I'm falling.
and of course, for those of you that don't know, which it should be obvious by now, we're also a film review podcast. And as Brian said much earlier, because we tend to try and see the film after it's been out for a couple of weeks, so that the film viewing experience is not exactly ruined for us.
And we're very high on the spoiler end. So we talk about the endings. We talk about
we tend to try and give you a couple of weeks before we sit down to record.
Yeah, it's meant to be enjoyed by someone that has seen the film already, of course. And yes.
Yeah, and we've also started doing little extra things. Yeah, and, not trying to rip off on you guys, but
slightly,
little extra short things
slightly, yes.
that we're calling our experiments in randomness, where we just kind of come up with a random topic and like pick either our top 3 or top 5 and just discuss. Like we've done, what have we done, Brian?
We've done our favorite film props. What one character would you love to be in a film? And have all the things that happen to that character happen to you. You don't actually get to change the events, but
you basically swap lives. With
things like that.
And some other stuff.
Yeah, it's just whatever we think of. Just talk about movies meant to be a little smaller. They range around about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Whereas our full-length episodes talking about one film are around an hour.
Yeah, sure. We'll definitely go give these guys a listen. It's a really fun show. You guys are hilarious. I love listening to you guys. And thanks again for joining us. And give these guys a follow. Not only subscribe to the show, but follow them on social media as well. I promise you won't regret it. Thanks, guys, for joining us once again.
Thank you for having us.
And on that note, that should do it for this week's show. Again, just a reminder to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and on Google Plus and YouTube as well. Just search InSession Film. You'll find us there. We do try to respond to every piece of email we get. So email us InSessionFilm@gmail.com. We'll definitely get back to you. And sign up for our monthly newsletter. You can do that on Facebook by clicking the newsletter tab or on our site at InSessionFilm.com/newsletter.
And for more thoughts on the films that we watch, you can check us out on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/InSessionFilm. And you can also find us at Lost at Home Podcast, where our good friends have been helping us out, featuring our shows and reviews there every week. We appreciate their support very much. And also a podcast you guys should definitely check out as well. Also, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes and on Stitcher. And while you are on iTunes, please leave us a review. We'd appreciate some feedback there as well. And lastly, you can check out our Listen Now page, which is on our website at InSessionFilm.com/listen-now.
And the InSession Film Podcast is supported by our super awesome listeners like you. Once again, if you want to help us, just go to InSessionFilm.com, click on the bonus content tab in our main menu to hear our bonus content for just a small donation of 99 cents. You can check out the InSession Film store or just go to InSessionFilm.com/donate, and you'll see a bunch of information there and how you can help us. One thing that I would highly recommend is checking out our mobile app, where you can hear everything we do for just a one-time fee of $1.99. You can find the app on the Amazon Market for Android devices, the Windows 8 phone store for Windows devices, and the Podcast Box app for iOS devices. And again, all those details are on the site at InSessionFilm.com/apps. Brendan, what are we doing next week on the show?
Next week, we're going to be spending some time with our friends Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, and Ice Cube with the film Straight Outta Compton, which, JD, I don't know if you know this, I just found out the movie's apparently almost 3 hours long.
Awesome. I did not know that.
I did not expect that. I think it's like 2 hours and 30 something minutes, so it's really more like 2.5 hours, but hey, if it's interesting, I'll go with it.
Me too.
But on that note, being a music biopic, we're going to be looking at doing our top 3 favorite music biopics, which, there's some great ones out there, but there's also a lot of terrible ones out there. So we may see about how we're going to do that if we don't think that there's too many great ones, but we'll see about that later on. I think it'd be a good one to discuss. And then for our third segment, we're going to be revisiting something that I think we've done at least once before called Sound Check, where we talk about some of our favorite uses of music in film and things like that, and that's essentially what we're going to be doing here. Our favorite uses of songs in film, maybe specifically in the hip-hop world to keep it with a theme, but I think it should be an interesting discussion.
No, I really look forward to it. That segment is actually one we haven't had a chance to do yet, so I really look forward to it. And
good.
Straight Outta Compton, that first trailer for that film is one of my favorites of the entire year. I love it, so I look forward to getting into it. I haven't read any reviews. I know some early ones have come out, so keeping myself at a distance per usual on that one. But before we get out of here, Paul, Brian, any final thoughts on anything before we leave today?
Don't go and see Fantastic Four.
I think, that should go without saying at this point.
Just to bring it back there.
No. No, just check us out. That's all.
Okay. What about you, Brendan? Anything?
Hey, we got a football game on tonight. We got the Hall of Fame game.
I know. It's almost that time of year again, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. But my Steelers are playing, so that's why I'm excited. They're playing the Vikings. Don't hate me for being a Steelers fan. I know people hate Pittsburgh because they play dirty, and I agree they sometimes do, and it makes me mad, but I'm still a fan, so don't judge me.
There you go. As far as final thoughts for me, I'm still blaming Fox. So screw you, Fox. At least you've gotten X-Men back on the right train, so that's good to know. Also, just want to say real fast, stay tuned for our extra film coming up this week. We are going to be doing Woody Allen's Irrational Man and hopefully the Stanford Prison Experiment. That is the plan, and definitely look forward to that before Straight Outta Compton next weekend. So on that note, and thanks everybody for all the birthday wishes. I really, really do appreciate everyone that got to me on that. It really means a
Happy
lot.
birthday.
So thanks for that. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Better late than never.
That's right.
Thank you guys.
No prompting whatsoever.
On that note, thanks guys for joining us once again. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you guys next time on the InSession Film Podcast.
I genuinely thought when everyone was like, yeah, we've got the same criteria, it's like, oh crap, everyone's going to be saying, well, yeah, that was my number 3.
Oh my god, I would have lost my mind if you said the Batman thing.
I was thinking you would have been leading, so you would have had the whole lot.
Yeah,
No,
that's
that
happened to
was-
us maybe once or twice
Yes, it did,
before.
yeah.
With because we don't run things, our picks by each other.
Yeah, I did. Sometimes it works, sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Like, oh, my number 3 is your number 1. Yeah, oh, great.
So yeah, I'm genuinely surprised at how different that all was.
I'm telling you, go back, watch the Batman movies, and they're like, especially like Dark Knight. So much more enjoyable to imagine him just hiding.
Where's that? What he's doing?
Yeah,
that was good.
He's like trying to hold his
How
breath.
are you going to get Loud back in? Oh,
Yeah.
where'd he go?
Trying to hold in a fart or something. Just like whatever it is. Like
Yeah,
it just makes me laugh.
He's just running down the street. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have had that third burrito.
Or he hasn't eaten all day and his stomach gargles.
Yeah, like he's about to sneak up on someone and just.
Yeah. The real life.
For the entire version of our podcast, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or on Stitcher, or check us out online at InSessionFilm.com.